Hey there, welcome to Studio 5. We've got an inspiring episode ahead. It's a bit of a Father's Day for a recording artist more than 50 years in the making. New music that blends the sounds of contemporary Christian and traditional gospel. And a best-selling author shares why she's so happy to know you. All this is ahead, but first let's fire up our countdown of the top 5 stories in the world of uplifting entertainment. At number 5.
An angel came to me. It's hard to have faith.
It's hard to believe.
Look at the star.
The Journey to Bethlehem. It is the latest project and directorial debut from songwriter Adam Anders, who's worked on well-known musical projects like Glee and Rock of Ages. It's the story of Jesus' birth, and rapper Lecrae plays the angel Gabriel.
Harry, God has chosen you to have a son, the King of all kings.
Tell me, if you could, who in your mind's eye is Gabriel? Who is he?
In my time having to do this and think about it all, Gabriel bears a lot of weight. You know, he bears the weight of directly taking a message from God and telling the mother of the Savior of the world that she's gonna give birth. So this is not just a light job.
Also in the film, Antonio Banderas as Herod, and it's coming to theaters November 10th.
Why would I help find a new king in my kingdom?
At number 4. George Clooney takes us inside his next film, set in 1936, with the University of Washington's rowing team journeying to the Summer Olympics in Berlin.
The Boys in the Boat is about strong, tough kids, but they were poor and hungry. They're rowing because it was the only way they could stay in college.
Well, what's that about making some money?
Yeah, the rowing team. You're on, you get a part-time job included, cheap place to live. All you gotta do is make the team.
The stakes were much higher for them.
The film is in theaters Christmas Day.
The Washington boat has taken the lead. Washington has done it!
Well, that's a great start to our countdown for this week. The remaining 3 stories are soon to come. Singer and songwriter as well as recording artist Kirk Franklin is busy these days with new music and a reunion tour. He's also sharing some big personal news in a documentary where he learns the birth father he buried wasn't his birth father. And then he meets the man who is.
Welcome home.
23 nominations, 10 million albums sold. You stole a few. You get tired of counting? I mean, 'cause I can go on.
That is,
9 Image
we don't
Awards,
have to,
43
we
Stellar
don't have to do any of
Awards,
that.
4 Billboard Awards.
We don't have to do any of that.
Didn't know much about love, the way it was supposed to be.
I am to live my life in light of God's grace for me. And that gives me the supernatural power, because it's going to take supernatural power to love unlovable people.
It's the only kind of love I know.
It's very hard to love someone that's not lovable when you're not reminded that you yourself have first been loved. And so when you remind yourself or are reminded of the bigger picture of where you were when you were found and rescued and name and identity changed, and it was all in the name of love, for God so loved. I've been homeless. I bathed in a church bathroom. I've survived death several times, endured public shame, but nothing could prepare me for what God had in store for me in 2023.
Take me back to Kirk Franklin meeting Jesus for the first time. Do you recall?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do, because I was raised in church, but I thought a lot of the church boy image, because church boy images in the 70s were not like what they are 70s and 80s. It's not like it is now. You know, if a woman sees a guy in church, it's like, oh, he a Christian and he love God and everything. But it was not like that when I was coming up. You know, you were looked at as weak. It wasn't something to be celebrated. So I fought against it. And, drinking, smoking, and being very promiscuous, made a lot of mistakes. I was in church. I knew the truth. I knew what the scripture said about this and that, but I wasn't applying it. And nor was it ever really taught in a way that it was wrapped in an attractive love that make you want to run to it. A baby's not going to run. A baby who's always being abused by dad is never going to run to the door when the father comes home. It's never happening. But if that father's shown love and affection when that father's in the house of that child, every night when that father comes home, that baby's going to run into the arms because of what they have built in the house together.
It says the results are probable paternity 99.99999%.
Percent what?
Yes, he's your father.
And so the summer of 1985, I got on my knees in my grandmama's den. And I told the Lord, I don't know much about you. I've been in church, I've heard about you, and I know that I'm not saved. And I want to ask you to become my Savior. And please come into my heart. And the first thing that really changed out of my life was drugs. That was the first thing drugs and drinking. That was the first thing. I was 15, 16 years old, you know, and so that was my first introduction to him. And since that day, from that day, there was a pull to him. The journey of life can be really messy. It's not pretty. And this is my mess. This is my beautiful, ugly mess. Most people live with wounds that are bleeding. Life can be brutal. And if we continue to paint these pretty, clean pictures, we're going to lose what the church was really, who the church was really built for. I just want to remind you that you deserve so much more. Lead with love. Love and truth must have this waltz, and they must always dance together. You know, love leads truth sometimes, truth leads love sometimes, but they always dancing. But we lead with love.
Give me a chance. This is going to be a lot, but I want to hug you. Please forgive me if it's not the best hug. No, bro. Just...
You can watch Kirk Franklin's Father's Day documentary by going to his YouTube page. The reunion tour is happening right now. Check your listings to see where they're coming next. The tour features Kirk Franklin, Ty Tribbett, the Clark sisters, Israel Houghton, David, and Tamala Mann. Still to come.
I'd be lying if I said I don't need your love. I'd be lying if I said I don't need you, God.
One House brings a new sound to the music scene, blending contemporary Christian with gospel. We're sitting down with band members and sampling their sound next. At number 3.
My name is Willie Gary.
Willie Gary.
Willie Gary.
William Gary. Never heard of him. Mr. Gary hasn't lost a case in over 12 years.
A Studio 5 look at the life of famed attorney Willie Gary in the film The Burial, starring Jamie Foxx. It's the true story of faith, friendship, and family, in theaters and streaming now on Amazon.
One suggestion, though, baby.
Yeah, what's that?
When you're up there in court tomorrow, doing your thing,
Doing my thing.
just try not to refer to yourself in the third person. Okay.
What you talking about, Glenn?
Faith also seems to be a big part of your life. We see some beautiful scenes in the film, in church and so forth. How important is that to you?
You know, like in the Lowen Group case, seemed like we were losing, going downhill. But I never forget it, I walked out the courtroom and I found a room, an empty room in the library.
Mm-hmm.
We were taking a beating. I mean, you wouldn't believe how the big high-powered law firms that the Lowen Group brought in. But I fell on my knees and said, Lord, you tell me what to say. I know our cause is just, and I know we're fighting a good fight and a decent fight and an honest fight. But I can't do it by myself.
Y'all come on in.
Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Gary. Let me introduce you to my comrade.
How do you feel about working with black folk? I suppose I am a little prejudiced.
Did you meet my team?
I'm Chris.
Sean.
That's Douglas.
At number 2.
Bells Entertainment is proud to present Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey.
The greatest show on earth!
Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus is back on a 2-year tour after shutting down in 2017.
And no, there is not one animal, unless you count a robot dog named Bailey.
You're supposed to be charging.
Well, with that, we've got just one more story to share in this week's countdown that's coming up in just a few moments. Right now, we want to turn to a music group known as One House. It's a unique group with a goal to pioneer a new sound. It's a ministry Pastors Torrey Roberts and his wife, Sarah Jakes Roberts, have fostered.
Some days I feel like I can walk on water, and some days I don't even know where I stand. Sometimes I am afraid to show honesty because I feel like I am losing a friend.
This project, as we were writing and creating this project, we were really thinking about people who aren't of faith, who don't think that faith is relevant to them.
Why do I pretend I got it together? Why do I keep on pushing you away?
So we really wrote it for everybody in mind. But then the other side of it is we wrote it for Christians who think that the only way to create Christian music has to fit into a particular box. And we wanted to say, hey, that's great. If you're called to a box, that's wonderful. But in One House, there are many rooms, and there might be other ways you can express your talent.
I know I said that last time was gonna be the last time, but here I am back again.
One House was birthed and born out of one church. And it's a church that I planted and founded back in 2004. And, you know, the fastest growing demographic in the church were creatives. And so I almost immediately began to, one, develop a love and appreciation for creatives, but then also I really discerned the need to create an environment for them to flourish in their creativity without being told what they have to do to be successful.
Thought I had control, but I just can't let it go. Oh, no, I'm falling back again.
I gotta tell you, when I founded, you know, One House Multimedia, when I founded the label, I wasn't even thinking about my son.
Would you ever believe it? Yeah. I know that we've been here a million times. Now I only want freedom.
I didn't even know that what me and the team that has come together to create One House was putting together would be a runway for my own son. So it's really humbling and very rewarding, and he's got it. I mean, not just because he's my son. That kid's talented.
I just want freedom from all of these demons.
But my vision for several years was to create, I just was crazy enough to believe that you can have music that is still inspiring and soul-reaching and soul-stirring, but has the potential to be introduced and accepted and celebrated in mainstream platforms and on mainstream platforms. And so when I heard it, I thought to myself, oh my God, we did it.
I'd be lying if I said I don't need your love. I'd be lying if I said I don't need you, God.
My prayer is that it really, really reaches the hearts of people. I think that as a Christian, and anything that can be labeled as Christian, there's almost like a hurdle that it has to climb over or to get over to reach the hearts of people. It isn't that the message isn't good. It isn't that the methodology of community isn't good. There are just so many negative stereotypes and stigmas that, and some earned, I'll be honest with you. It's not like we didn't earn some of it. Let's just keep it 100. But the better part of our faith is really good and helpful. And so, you know, I'm just praying that this, you know, music being a powerful tool will be something that God can use to reach people, and to a certain degree, I hate to use this term, but I'll use it, to rebrand the church and the value of the church, and to reach people and ultimately lead them to God.
I'd be lying if I said I don't need you, God.
One House's debut album is called Eyes Up. It's available right now wherever you stream your music. We need to take a quick break right here, but before we do, it's time to share this week's story in pictures. Here's your Studio 5 snapshot. We celebrate a life well lived. Suzanne Summers, actress, star of Three's Company, singer, and fitness icon, lost her longtime battle with cancer Sunday, just one day shy of her 77th birthday. Summers was very open about her health struggles over the years. She died surrounded by her husband, Alan Hamill, and her family. A look at her life in pictures is this week's Studio 5 Snapshot. Still ahead, a new children's book touching the hearts of children and children at heart.
The book's been out for a couple of weeks, and I have parents reaching out saying, hey, I wish you'd have told me to read this one time first so that I could cry by myself instead of tearing up in front of my kids.
Author Annie F. Downs shares her heart and the story behind So Happy to Know You. At number 1. A closer look at the new musical film version of The Color Purple.
There's nothing that's been more important or vital to me culturally, artistically, than The Color Purple. It is a solid base of spiritual and emotional power for me. Every woman and man who has been invisible, who has felt unseen and unvalued, this is their story.
Today, our teacher taught us about a place called Africa. Our mamas come from Queens over there. You know what that means? We, royalty.
Oprah Winfrey is producer on this film, hitting theaters December 25th, Christmas Day.
How come you don't laugh none? Ain't you got something to make you just smile?
My sister, and I ain't seen her in years.
You know, if you ain't gonna laugh, you need to sell your footy bone.
Oh!
Annie F. Downs is a podcaster and a best-selling author, and now she has released her second children's book, and she's joining us now to talk about it. So good to have you. So happy to know you. Where did this come from? What happened?
I love telling people that they were made on purpose. Right? Like, it's one of the things I feel like God has made me to do is to remind all of our friends that they are not a mistake. They are not an accident. The thing that is unique about them is the thing that is best about them. And so when I think about saying that to my grown-up friends, I thought, man, I want to say that to the kids in my life too. And I used to teach elementary school. And so I thought, man, what would I go back and say to my 4th and 5th graders if I could? And that's really where So Happy to Know You came from, was this idea of how can I help kids see that their uniqueness is their strength?
What was it, or what's inspiring you to keep reaching out to children? Because you've written for adults as well, we know. What's inspiring you to keep reaching out to children now?
Well, you know, everything that we read as adults is speaking to us as in our little 5-year-old selves too, right? We are always all of us. And so everything I write, particularly the kids' books, I'm thinking about the grown-ups who are reading it, the teachers. And it's been really funny, Ephraim, because the book's been out for a couple of weeks, and I have parents reaching out saying, hey, I wish you'd have told me to read this one time first so that I could cry by myself instead of tearing up in front of my kids. Because we all need that reminder, right? We just all need the reminder that we were made on purpose. And I think you're going to love this. One of the things about this book is it's dedicated to the kids that I taught when I taught 5th and 4th grade 20 years ago. And so I found a bunch of them on Facebook, and I sent them the book. And it's been I mean, I think I mailed about 70 books to kids I used to teach. And so even seeing them respond to the book and respond to it being dedicated to them has been such a gift.
Indeed. Tell me about the noise that you think we as adults hear, but also that children hear, that hopefully this helps to silence.
Yeah, I mean, so much of what culture tells us is be like everyone else. Just get in line, be exactly like everyone else. The way to be successful and cool is to come in alignment, wear what everyone else is wearing, dress how they're dressing, believe what they're believing. And I just think the thing we get to quiet, the thing the gospel quiets is, I mean, Jesus picked a bunch of different people to hang out with him. And so the thing that the gospel quiets that I hope we get to quiet as believers in the lives of others, particularly in kids, is like, hey, don't be like everybody else. God made you uniquely. Just be you, and that's going to change the world.
I love that. How did you personally find that message, and how did that come alive in you for Annie to be Annie?
I mean, Ephraim, you know this. I mean, that has been a journey for me. That's one of the reasons I really enjoyed writing this book. And even in the book, in So Happy to Know You, I'm always Annie. Like, that's my descriptor, because the book goes through and gives all these adjectives with every letter of the alphabet to help kids find the word that best describes them. And so for me, it's always Annie. Like, this is actually who I've always been. And there's such joy in going like, man, I've always been a brave Brendan. I've always been a kind Katie, you know, and just kind of leaning into that. So that's been the journey for me, is figuring out like, hey, this is me. This is who I am. And there is so much beauty when you're walking in the way God made you.
So now, as this is released for young people to read, what's your prayer? What are you praying happens when they open it?
Oh, right. I mean, I could just get emotional talking to you about it, but this is one of those that we may not see the difference until the kid is 10 years down the road and they're making choices, realizing that they are following their unique path God has for them. So this feels like a long play in my life. We do some things that are short plays, right? Like our Let's Read the Gospels podcast. We're like, we want you to hear the Gospels right now. So come and listen to the podcast. But this one feels like a long play that we just keep reading it to our kids and reading it to ourselves. And so my prayer is that this one carries, that this one sits on shelves for a long time, that teachers keep it in their classrooms, librarians keep it in the library, that it becomes a little bit of a classic in the lives of a bunch of kids, so that they make choices different when they're 16, when they're 26, when they're 56, because of what they read when they were 5.
I love that. And on that note, so happy to know you, Annie. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, the book is available right now wherever you purchase your books. You're watching Studio 5. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Studio 5. Music helps us to bring you this show every week, and this week's soundtrack comes from one of our favorites, Pastor CeCe Winans. Take a listen, and you'll hear why Holy Forever is what's playing in my ear this week. Forever. On that musical note, we are just about out of time for this week's edition of Studio 5. So let's take a quick look ahead to see what's coming up on next week's rundown.
You know what? I think you're going to be one of those people who can actually come up with an answer for that kind of question.
Just 1 week away, an out-of-this-world true story from a migrant farm worker turned astronaut.
When I was a 10-year-old, I see on the black and white TV the very last Apollo mission, Apollo 17, Gene Cernan walking on the moon. And man, that's when it hit me. I said, that's what I want to be. I want to be like that guy. I want to go to space.
His life's dream is now a feature film from a million miles away.
Over the last 10 years, I've applied to the space program 12 times, and I've been on the verge of giving up after each and every rejection. But you know what, sir? Here I am.
Be sure to join us for that next week and so much more. This week, we've got time for just one more thing, and we're going to give that to Kirk Franklin. He's got our final word.
Holy Spirit, I bring my soul to the cross. I am powerless to live for you in my own strength. The temptation to worship this music, to make it my identity, to use it to fuel my sinful brokenness and pride, to contaminate and abuse it for my own glory, to be a slave to the emotions of whatever your will is for it. I surrender it all to you now. The emotional crash I feel if it doesn't impress everyone with sales, I'm asking you, Lord, for the supernatural power to rejoice no matter what you allow. Please, God, divorce my heart from what was and enable me the grace to accept what is. I'm tired of being a prisoner to the past trophies and earthly crowns. So I exchange my heart for yours, to die to myself, my will, and my desires, so that you may wear me today as your garment of mercy. In faith, I do all of this.
Kirk Franklin, thank you. That is a great final word for this edition of Studio 5 and this week's look at uplifting entertainment. Until next time, I want to encourage you to make time to uplift someone around you, and then please come back See where Studio 5 takes you next week. Bye-bye. We appreciate you watching.